Hello, good evening, one and all. You join us for the IRL F3 round 4. Tonight we're around Spain, Catalonia for the fourth round of the F3 Championship Season 10. And tonight you join us after the first three races been won by three different race winners. We're hoping for another cracker. Our last race in Spa-Francorchamps was won by, of course, Stragio after quite a thrilling Grand Prix. If it was a little bit safety car ridden. Alongside me tonight I have Charlie. Charlie. Spa-Francorchamps is probably one of the most adored tracks on the F1 calendar. This circuit perhaps doesn't get quite the same recognition, does it?
No, it's still a good circuit. It's a fast circuit. You need good aero package around here, but you don't quite get the thrilling races around here that Spa throws up for you. So yeah, sort of limited overtaking opportunities around here. It's really hard to follow the guy in front, and yeah, it's not quite as good as Spa, but it still should be able to throw us a good race tonight.
Well, absolutely, we're hoping so. We've got almost a full grid tonight. I believe we might be losing Malc tonight due to illness. I think is the reason in the Mercedes. So obviously that's a big shame. Hopefully we'll get him in for round 5. Of course, he's had a very strong start to the season himself. But coming into this round, it's incredibly close. As we're saying, 3 different race winners in the opening 3 races. It's beginning to get very tough to predict. Who's your money on for qualifying, Charlie? Is it still the Alfa Romeos, particularly Mr. P?
I mean, yeah, I'm giving up trying to predict after last week, but yeah, I mean, they've got to be up there, haven't they? And like Stragio won the last race, had really good pace, so let's see if he can reproduce that. Yeah, there's a few other guys in the mix, you know, Craig, Jeffrey as well up there, so yeah, let's see how this goes.
Absolutely, of course, now loading into the qualifying session, 18 drivers out there already to get out there and to set some fast laps. And of course, first thing noticing is it is a little bit of a cloudy sky. We'll have to wait and see if we get any sort of weather forecasts noted to us. I'm sure they'll all be hoping for a nice dry, calm session, particularly those at the front of the field. I'm sure the likes of Stragio, Luke Bailey, Craig, of course, had a very good race in Spa as well. These guys will be fighting for the win. I'm sure they'll be hoping for a dry session. But in terms of the tyres, Charlie, this Spa is one of the easiest circuits on the calendar in terms of tyres. Spain, Catalonia seems to be a little bit of the opposite direction.
Yeah, definitely. This is a really hard circuit on your tyres. Medium to hard is the optimal strategy around here because the softs just really can't last that long around here. So yeah, it's really hard. You've got to manage your tyres well, especially through the last sector. They can overheat. You can find yourself power sliding out of that last corner and compromising your exit onto the straight, which could leave you vulnerable to cars behind and limit your opportunities to overtake as well.
Absolutely, Steve. Well, quite a rush of cars quickly coming out. We've got the racing point of TT Jeffrey. I think there's the first car at Tinnis as well. These are 2 drivers who have done a very good qualifying session in the opening 3 rounds of the Season 10 Championship, and of course they'll be looking to try and continue that. And I'm looking at most of the drivers so far seem to be out on the hard tyres. Is that the tyre that if you wanted to, you know, a couple of bankers on, is this a tyre that you can really get your teeth into?
Yeah, definitely. I find it easier to go for the hard for a banker because if you go for the soft, it becomes quite easy to push hard and you've got loads of grip, and then when you go for your actual quali run on the medium, you find yourself with less grip and you can end up pushing too hard and losing the car. So if you go for the hard to begin with, it makes it easier when you make that switch over to the medium to do your fast run to get a better lap in.
And see the drivers now just starting their first flying laps of session. Of course, we're probably not expecting these times to be as quick right now in session. Of course, the track is still a little bit green, have to be a little bit rubbered in. Maybe the temperatures will rise up as well. We'll have to wait and see. But as we're saying, TG Jeffrey and Tinnis, 2 guys who have done a very good job in qualifying so far. TG Jeffrey particularly seems to be the one man who can really push the 2 Alfa Romeos of Mr. P, of Luke Bailey. Those 2 seem to really have their fun qualifying. And have to wait and see if they can do it tonight. But moving on to the Alfa Romeos, Charlie, what's Mr. P got to do? Because obviously we've seen him do so well in qualifying. He absolutely dominated the race in Japan, but since then it seems to have gone as bad as it can possibly get for him.
Yeah, he's had 2 pretty horrendous races in Abu Dhabi and Spa since Japan, so he just needs to get his head together and keep himself to himself in the race and try not to get tangled up in too many unnecessary battles, because like we've seen, he has got the pace. So yeah, just needs to cut out the silly little incidents that he gets involved in the races and just get on with his own race.
Absolutely. So we've got a retirement there from Synchronously in a Renault, which I believe is just perhaps, I think it's on the exit of, is that turn 9, I think it might have been. So he's had quite a struggle in terms of getting his car to the end so far this season. I think he's had quite a few DNFs. I think he crashed out even on the first lap of the championship, so he's certainly not going to started his qualifying all too well. And you see Mr. P already showing that qualifying pace continuing. He goes up into divisional pole, which is immediately then beaten by Dutch Light on that set of mediums for 20.3. Mr. P only a few thousandths off that on the harder tyres, so that's a very good benchmark for Mr. P. 6 cents faster than his teammate and 6 cents faster than TGJ. Still B now goes up on a 19.5 on the medium tyre, so he's gone fastest by an 8/10 of a second. If these guys are qualifying the mediums very early on, Charlie, do you reckon they're starting on the soft tyres, or is it a case of the softs are just not viable in the race?
Personally, I don't think, unless you've got a massive pace advantage over your competitors, the soft really isn't viable. Yeah, I mean, obviously, you know, now with safety cars and VSCs and different things that can happen in the races, you could luck yourself into a strategy whereby the soft might work, but if it's a straightforward race, it's mediums are hard around here, you really don't want to be touching the soft.
And see, moving up onto a 20.4, he moves into 4th place. F1 Richard has got himself up into P5 with a 20.9. Driver's done really nicely, F1 Richard, McLaren driver. He's been quite modest in qualifying, but he's kept himself around the top 6 in qualifying. He's always managed to so far in the first rounds, kept himself out of trouble. Of course, picked up a very valuable win, and his first ever win in Abu Dhabi. He just seems to be quite a reliable driver so far, where a lot of drivers seem to be struggling, having a few off races. In terms of saying earlier, Mr. P as well, but potentially one of them's got to look at maybe a little bit have a look at his teammate in terms of the race pace. It seems like Mr. P might have the edge on his teammate so far in qualifying, but the race has proved different. Brennon's in the McLaren is also another dependable driver. He goes up into P5 with a 20.3, so that's another respectable lap time on the hard as a quick banker.
Yeah, Mr. P, like we say, he has got lightning pace in quali, but Luke Bailey does look to be the faster of the two drivers, what we've seen so far in the race. And seems to be a bit more consistent over a race than his teammate.
Actually, it's Spud just on outlap there. It's a driver who perhaps doesn't quite like to go for qualifying laps. I think he's one of these drivers who likes to stay out of trouble, stay at the back, and just pick his way through the field through strategy, and of course keeping it clean. No lap times have been set on the soft tyres. Only 2 drivers are taking a gamble on the medium tyres so far. Everyone else seeming to take the banker laps on the hards. I think it's Spud just going a little bit wider there around turn 2. Of course, compromises turn 3 a little bit. We'll see how he's doing in the first sector. 23.3. Of course, that's 4th turn. Quite hard. It's really hard to get on the power, especially on those hard tyres. You feel like waiting for an absolute age. As Tinnis has moved up into P3 with a 20.2. And Luke Bailey and Mr. P all the way down 5th and 8th. So perhaps there is potentially an early sign that maybe Alfa Romeo might be under a little bit of pressure so far in this qualifying session.
Yeah, it's a very good time by Tinnis and also Jeffrey as well. You know, they're really putting the sword to the others. So yeah, it's you know, going to be interesting to see how this pans out, because it's looking very close between the hard runners at the moment.
Absolutely, of course, it's quite a big gap as well so far from still B. A 19.5. He's got quite a nice cushion at the moment. Of course, he has set that time on the mediums. TC Jeffries moved up to a 20.1 as well, so he's got himself found himself. So see what Spud can do. He's just about to round out this last corner. Of course, a very fast last corner. Slow down a little bit due to the, of course, over the years it's been turned from the second to last corner as almost a flat corner. It is, of course, now turned into a couple of chicanes. And he moves up into P12 with 22.4. He'll be looking to try and shave off a second or more. We'll see what everyone else is. A lot of people in the pit so far. I see Captain Stiff in the Williams. Looks like he's just about to set his first banker lap on the hard tyres. Williams have been quite on and off, is to be fair to say. In terms of qualifying, they haven't had too many in terms of really looking like they're threatening the top 10. But in the race, they have managed to keep their noses clean. They have done well on strategy. There's a bit of a disaster race for them in Spa, with Gareth having a bit of a horrid time at the back, and and he's just losing it through there in the last sector in the wall.
Yeah, he just, you know, clipped that curb on the left hand side going through that little chicane there, and yeah, just lost it. And Once you lose it here, there's no runoffs like we see at some other tracks like Abu Dhabi. You're straight in the wall, and yeah.
Because of course on the hard tyres in particular, that turn 11 is really almost a bit of an underrated corner. It's a sort of a flat left, but that curb, it can really unsettle the car if you get on it just the wrong way.
Yeah, if you take too much of it, the car literally just goes from underneath you, and there's not much you can do about it, in fairness. So you really just have to avoid it and take the widest entry into that left-hander as possible to avoid doing what Gareth just did there.
Absolutely, 12 lap times have been completed so far. Craig is still yet to set a lap time, so is Colin in the Ferrari. Wojtek is another driver we should mention in terms of qualifying. He's done a really nice pace so far. He's proven himself at the start of this season. He's had a couple of DNFs, had a DNF in Japan, I had a DNF in Spa, but in terms of pace, he's really proved himself to be at least a top 6 runner. He'll be looking to try and get himself onto the podium today, I'm sure. But he's out on the set of medium tyres. We'll see whereabouts he can pit himself. Craig, of course, he was absolutely gutted, he was saying in midweek, about his... Well, he was looking really good for the race win. Charlie, you see Colin, actually, I think might have just crashed out in the pit lane. Pit straight, I think he might have gone.
Yeah, I'm not sure where that happened.
But talking about Craig and Spa, it looked like he was really going to go for the win, picked up a penalty which in the end really cost him, not just a win, but then in the end a podium. It's been quite gut-wrenching for him.
Yeah, he had, again, like we've seen in a couple of races from Craig this season, he had a really good race pace, and he seemed to have everything under control last week in Spa, but like I say, a couple of penalties and Dragio on that, making that late charge for the lead, just pipped him to the win. But I think it's coming for Craig. He's constantly up there and he's got the pace, so I'm sure if he just keeps his head down and sticks at it, a win will come in time. Absolutely,
there's absolutely cause to be. We're right on board with our last week's race winner, Dragio, in the Toro Rosso. He's just had a purple middle sector according to the track map on the right hand side. Just again talking about Wojtek, he's really proved himself to be one of the top runners in this league. So, and he has gone provisional pole on 19.5, so it's really close with Still B, but he's just pipped in there to the provisional pole. Let's see what Dragio can do. He said he's got to get a little bit better in qualifying. Of course, he qualified all the way down in P9, but that didn't stop him from winning the race. He took and made the most of every opportunity that came his way, and it goes P1 with a 19.1. I think that is potentially, Charlie, the first sort of blistering lap we've had so far tonight.
Yeah, I think that's going to be a pretty competitive lap. I was expecting these guys to be, low 19s, maybe high 18s, as the track rubs in. But yeah, that's a very good first run from Dragio. He's put down a real benchmark there for the other guys to go and get.
Absolutely, 0.4 of a second is the difference between him and second place Wojtek, who in his own right did not set a bad lap at all. There's a good bank on. I see now a lot of guys in the pits. They all seem to be getting ready for that one last lap potentially on the medium tyres. But Still B is going to try and set another lap, see if he does improve. He doesn't. He's also 22.7, so it might have been just a back off lap for him. Might go for another lap before he comes into the pits, or maybe he's just happy with where he is at the moment. Who knows if he does want to change his tyres. Excuse me, see Captain Stiff is in the pit lane, Craig is in the pit lane. Those two are yet to set a lap time. Saw O'Stephen, they were tying. I think he just lost the rear of that Williams just coming out of turn 2, and just because there is a wall just before turn 3 on the left hand side, I think he might just hit that. And of course, which again does sort of roll with the theme of Williams really struggling in qualifying so far this season. But he does sit in P13 place, which again, Charlie, when it's a circuit which is so hard on tyre wear, it's not perhaps such a bad idea to start just a position or two outside the top 10, where you get a free choice of tyre and a free run at strategy.
Yeah, that extra lap or two of tyre life can really make a difference around here, because the rate at which the tyres wear is so quick. Yeah, any advantage you can get on tyre life is crucial around here.
Absolutely, just a few cars now to head out, and they're all heading out on brand new set of mediums, so it's going to be a really interesting last 5 minutes to see lap times coming in at plenty, I'm sure. And see Still does is going to come round again, so he's not going to perhaps think of another lap. He's just 22.1, so I think he's just happy where he is. But it's going to be really interesting to see Mr. P is just, I think, going to be the first one to set a new flying lap on the new medium tyres with just 5 minutes left on the clock. See where it goes into this first sector. He's a tenth and a half up on his personal best already. Of course, he's got to try and find about 1.2 seconds to put him anywhere near the pole position time with Dragio so far. But it seems like if anyone can get a pole position out of nowhere, it does seem to be Mr. P would be the favourite.
Yeah, it's, you know, he's got to put a good lap in here, but I've got a feeling that the guys that have just gone out on mediums now might have fueled their car for 2 flying laps. So let's see what this first banker lap puts in, but I'm expecting him probably to go for another lap if he doesn't quite get the time he wants here.
Interesting to see as Mr. P now apparently says a purple middle sector is 6 tenths second up. He's still got some more his provisional lap if he's going to be challenging for that front position. But of course, you can so easily find a lot more time on this sector now, and of course with those grippier fresh tyres you can find a lot of time. Takes a really nice line. He's got to get on the power as soon as he can. He's going to run as wide as he can through that last corner, get on the power as it puts him up into P3, a few thousandths off P2 behind Voigt. But he has got time, and if he has got fuel for another lap, I'm sure he will go for it. Let's see further down the grid, see Tinnis going 2 tenths up as well in his personal best. He set that into P7 after initially a very quick lap time. Let's see what he can do after the middle sector. But it seems like I've got to have a lot of cars coming over the start-finish line very soon. Luke Bailey, of course, as well. He's done very, very well in qualifying, at least putting himself on the second row quite often. He's 8 tenths a second up.
And Malc's put himself up into P2 with a 19.501. A very nice lap from Malc. He's put himself ahead of Wojtek, Mr. P and Steele. So, yeah, nice lap by Malc. 4
drivers there within the same tenth of a second, all the way down from second, all the way down to 5th. Incredibly close stuff as Luke Bailey's setting a really nice time. He's got a yellow flag in the second sector. I think it's just a driver getting out of the way. As Luke Bailey does improve, but it's only a 19.7. I'm sure he'll be a little bit annoyed at that because it does drop him, or gets him up into P7. And just really nice lap there for Malc, because he's shown flashes so far this season, but he seems to have really nice race pace. But in terms of his qualifying, it seems to be just a little bit out of position, it seems.
Yeah, he does seem to qualify out of position a fair bit, but you know, maybe this track suits his driving style, and he's feeling good around here, which it looks like, because that time is really respectable. So yeah, I think nice lap by Malc. Let's see if the times tumble as the session goes on.
TT Jeffrey on an out lap as well, so can never discard him. He just seems to have a knack of putting his car, or at least on the front or second row. So I expect to see him starting hard at the grid in rather than P9. F1 Richard, as we say, one of the steady eddies, one of the guys who's Mr. Reliable so far this season. He's down in 10th. Qualifying hasn't potentially been his strong point, but I'm sure he'll be looking to get a little bit further up the grid as Dutch Lowy retires. I'm not sure if he might have just done that on track as Craig's coming around the last corner. He's currently P15, yet to set a lap, and he goes P1 with a 19.1. Wow. Only the second man to go into the 19.1. There's quite a massive gap there between second and third place, but what a lap from Craig under pressure.
Yeah, this is going to get really close now. I think Jeffrey's on a pretty quick lap. He's already 4 tenths up on his time going through sector 1. And there's a lot of time to be found in sector 2 and 3 on the softer tyre compound. So let's see where he goes through sector 2. He's 8 tenths up, purple sector by the looks of it.
Well, of course, he's only got to find a second to try and get himself with the same within touching point of the Renault Craig, who's on provisional pole. So Mr. P as well, just going a tenth of a second up. Of course, he is on his second flying lap on those medium tyres. They can't get away with it. They are quite durable, these tyres. Even though you are going to be doing your fastest lap in qualifying, obviously no takers on the soft tyres. That shows you where they are. Mr. P goes fastest, so a 19.0.
Yeah,
but TT Jeffrey,
yeah, I've seen him coming out the last corner, and he just got great traction, a great line through that chicane. It just looked so hooked up. It was, yeah, a really nice lap by Jeffrey. So let's see if anyone can top that now.
Absolutely, that's a couple of laps there, and the first man to dip into the 1 minute 18's TG Jeffrey will be absolutely thrilled with that, I'm sure. Just 45 seconds left in the session. We've got a Renault, I think that might be Craig, I think, in the second sector, causing a yellow flag, and might have just held up one of the McLarens of Brennon's there. I have to see if that affects his lap time. Luke Bailey was just a little bit up on his time, I believe. We see now coming through this last sector. He's currently down in P10. He knows his teammate's in P2, so he's going to have to try and find a little bit of time. He's 7 tenths off his teammate. He's been doing pretty well in terms of qualifying, as we were saying. He's going to want to try and get at least on the second row of the grid. He's going to have to see where he can go. He goes P5, so he does improve by a fair distance, about 3 tenths of a second, but he's got to find 3 tenths to try and find get himself onto the second row. Malc retired, so he's happy with his lap. He is currently P6, and a lot of these guys in the pits, I think it's only Brennon's and Captain Stiff and the Williams who can potentially go faster. Brennon's comes into the pit lane, so it seems to be all down now to the top 3 and potentially Gareth.
I think that's it really for our top 5. Let's just see where Gareth goes now. I think everyone else is either finished their laps or on their way to the pit. So yeah, let's just look at Gareth.
Of course, under a bit of a pressure lap, his teammate sat into P14 after retiring quite early on into the session. Colin in the Ferrari and Synchronicity did not manage to set a lap before retiring, and saying the Williams struggled in qualifying, so a bit of a pressure lap for Gareth. I'm sure he'll be wanting to redeem after a bit of a nightmare race in Spa. There's a lot of safety cars, had quite a few second chances if you like. He just couldn't seem to get it right. He's really struggling. He is of course making that switch from pad to wheel. It's popping up purple in the middle sector, so we'll have to wait and see if that is legitimate. Of course, it can be a little bit misleading at times, but it drops down into third gear for this long right hand corner. Have to wait such a long time before we can get onto the full power. Up into fifth gear, drops it down to third for this right hand corner. Gets back onto the throttle. Of course, the left right coming up to the finish now, and then also you get on the power best you can. A little bit of a squirm on the exit, and obviously flat all the way around here.
That's a tidy lap.
But it goes over the line and it goes up into P4, so he's pulled an absolute rabbit out of the hat to do a 19.1, only 0.2 of a second off pole without a bank lap, and for someone who's really been struggling in qualifying, that's a bit of a miracle for Gareth.
Yeah, that's massive for Gareth. This will really boost his confidence going into this race and for the rest of this season. Like we say, using his wheel now and getting used to it, this is a great time by Gareth.
Absolutely fantastic lap. Was just pipped last week's race winner Dragio by just a few thousandths of a second, and of course, as we were saying, the gap between P5 and P6, 0.3 of a second there, it really could have been I'm sure any one of these top 5 drivers I feel that could have had a pole position in them. But fantastic effort from the top 5 in particular. Malc gets himself up into P7. I'm sure he'll be very happy with that. But in terms of qualifying, Charlie, was that really what we're expecting? Of course, we know Mr. P is very good in qualifying, but a first pole position for TG Jeffrey getting the pole position, and that's not too much of a shock because he has been the biggest threat to the Alfa Romeo so far this season.
Yeah, he has by far been the biggest threat, and has also had the race pace really to back it up. He's just been a bit unlucky with his races so far, Jeffrey. So yeah, it's not a massive shock, but that's a good top 3. I think they're all pretty closely matched on race pace. And even, I say top 3, top 5, top 6, this is going to be a really close race for the podium position. So, yeah, it seems to be getting more and more competitive as we go on, and improving, which is good.
Absolutely, of course, see that all the way down there in P14, F1 Richard, I'm sure he'll not be happy at all with his qualifying session. He's been really putting himself into the championship window after his first 3 rounds. As we say, he's just been really, really consistent. He won in Abu Dhabi, his first race win in the league, so big booster for him. He had a nice race in Spa. He was very unlucky not to get onto the podium. I think it was penalties that dropped him off him in the end. But I'm sure with P14 he knows it's a long race, and if there's quite a long run into turn 1, Charlie, with a first lap casualties is quite a real issue because it is very tight for these first 2 corners.
Yeah, like we saw on Monday night, casualties can be a thing in turn 1 and 2, and turn 2 especially is so slippery. The slightest contact around there and you're kind of gone. So everyone needs to just be a bit cautious through there, and the race isn't won in turn 1, but it's often lost. So yeah, just be cautious through there and get your head down and race on from there, really.
Absolutely, of course. Brennon's getting himself into the top 10 as well. I think he qualified himself into P9. He is someone who really does seem to come alive in a race. He seems to quite often qualify outside the top 10, but he always seems to be reliable in terms of getting those top 10 and getting those points home. Much like his teammate, just keeping himself out of trouble and doing a really nice race. It'll be interesting to see what he can do starting in the top 10 tonight. The first pole position that isn't an Alfa Romeo. It'll be interesting to see how TG Jeffrey takes the formation up and, of course, the race start. He's a driver who we know has been very quick. He was very quick in pre-season. He's very quick. I think we didn't have him in the second round of the season. I think it was the first one. We didn't have him in Japan. But in Abu Dhabi and Spa, Charlie, he felt like, even though he wasn't the race winner, he felt like he perhaps was. He had a bit more pace than his finishing position showed, didn't he?
Yeah, definitely. He like we say before, he did pose a threat to our top runners, and and looked really like he looked in a couple of races like he was going to take the race by the horns, but take the ball by the horns, but it didn't turn out that way. So let's see if he can do that tonight.
Well, he's in the best position of the grid. He is starting from P1, and of course if he gets a nice good launch into turn 1, I'm sure he'll be looking really, really handy tonight. It is a tough track to overtake, but equally, Charlie, DRS is in a way quite powerful around here. It is another one of those tracks where it can be labelled, like most circuits on this game, a DRS train. Is overtaking a real possibility around this circuit, at least on the game, or is it going to be a bit of a train?
It depends on if you are in a train, because if you're in a gaggle of cars that are following each other within a second of each other, you can find yourself stuck really between a rock and a hard place. So yeah, it can be hard if you are in a train, but if you're not in a train, the DRS is very effective on that main straight. So look out for people that drop out of the second gap of the car in front, because they could be vulnerable to the car behind.
Absolutely, of course, safety cars can also come into effect here tonight, and of course we saw plenty of safety cars in Spa. 4 full course safety cars we had in round 3. We're hoping for potentially at least a little bit less tonight. We'll have a bit more action, but in terms of the strategy, Charlie, all these guys all seem to be starting on the medium tyres at least. Is it go as long as you can on mediums and then onto hards, or are we going to potentially see a couple of guys go for 2-stop?
We may see a couple of guys go for 2-stop, but I'd say that's probably more dependent on whether they pick up damage, or whether it's a safety car or VSC or things like that. So yeah, I expect the majority of people to be on a 1-stop, and the undercut isn't that effective around here either, because you have to warm the hard tyre up. So when you make that switch over, you can often actually find yourself being overcut by someone else. So yeah, let's look out for that as well.
Of course, seems to be the door is wide open for strategies. Of course, it is a very tough track on tyres. We'll have to wait and see. We'll have to be a bit patient on that. TG Jeffrey will be the pole sitter. He'll be the man with the biggest benefit coming into turn 1. Mr. P has not scored a point since round 1. He finds himself on the second place. He'll be absolutely determined to try and get his championship hopes back on the right way. But anyway, we are 3, 4, 5 red lights as we're waiting underway. 18 cars revving on the limiter, and we are lights out on the way for round 4 in the Spanish Grand Prix of Catalonia. TG Jeffrey goes to the inside immediately, but he's got a really nice start, and it seems like Mr. P cannot find any way answer to him. Craig's looking to the outside. Gav's got a clean start as well. It's going to go sub and first. Just sweeps back a little bit, and it all seems clean. So Ratio, they're all being really well behaved. This Ratio now going to try side of the waves. He's going to have to be very brave to get it around there. It's not quite. Looks like Gav's holding on to P4. Down. Thinks better of it. It's got a yellow flag at the back, and it's in turn 4 already. So of course, after as you're saying, he's had a really nice qualifying yet again, but it seems like after what for lap, he's all the way down to 18th.
Yeah, I couldn't quite see what happened there, but again, Mr. P getting caught up in incidents. Yeah, it's been his downfall. So I don't think he's picked up damage by the looks of it, and there's no safety car. He's back. He's really straight back onto the 17th place man, and he's got to get his head down and start working his way back through the field.
Absolutely, it'll be interesting to see, of course, or find out afterwards if he has contact or just lost a lot more contact further back. I think it might be one of the Hasselhoff tennis who's just had a bit of a spin, or even got damaged even. So he's got stuff back going. I think he's missing an airplay on that, and that wing off the Haas as well. And Colin using it as well. Same corner right later.
Yeah, maybe a lot of people being caught out by the heavy fuel loads and the cold tyres. Maybe they didn't get enough heat into them as they would have liked on the formation lap. And this track can be difficult with the heavy fuel loads. So yeah, possibly a couple of people being caught out by that. F1
looking into the pit, I'm sure he's got a bit of damage on his front wing, because of course you don't really want to be doing that. But it's in a massive fight now for what is now P3. Gareth is doing everything in his power to try and keep hold of the Alfa Romeo of Luke Bailey behind. He's just about done it. Of course, Luke Bailey's got to have 2 sets of eyes. Got one forward and one behind. Because Ratio once again is looking very racy in P5. He's looking all over the back of that Alfa Romeo. As too is Malc, who's up into P6. Brennons is into P7. Got a yellow flag in that last sector. I think that might just be Colin retiring. I think he's just in the pit lane retiring. And of course it is. Can you understand that? Because it was, of course, you are half a lap down. It's quite hard. But at the same time, we've got a spinner at the back there of Dutch Lowy on the exit. I think that was turn 10. It's all going on right about now.
It's all going on. Giorgio has just lunged Luke Bailey down into the hairpin, but he's gone in a bit too hot and he's tapped the back of Gareth. And luckily for Gareth, he's got cat-like reflexes and managed to catch the car before he spun. So yeah, maybe that would need looking at by Giorgio is a bit of an optimistic move, but I think they're all back underway safely.
And Giorgio now going all the way to the inside, trying to try and lose the tone, defend the inside line to Luke Bailey. He's got himself up into P4 on this lap. That's a perfect first 2 laps for TT Jeffrey, but he's got a 1.2 second gap to Craig, but Craig can come back, and Giorgio is holding on to P4 just about. As Wojtek's got himself up into P6. Malc drops back down to P7, and Dutch Lowy has got it back going, but he is down in 15th. Almost 7 seconds behind the fly of Sir Spud. Mr. P's moved up into P13. Synchronously started on the back, he started on the mediums, and he's now got himself into P11. Just fighting, I think, with the Haas going back down the inside of turn 5, and looks like he's got a move done. So he's almost one place off the points from the last slot on the grid. Got a very good first few laps there from Synchronously.
Yeah, he's looking very racy. He's, like you say, made 7 positions already, and straight onto the back of Steele in Mercedes. He's looking to take another place here.
He's going through the DRS, and well, yeah, easy as you like. He's making this look very easy. He's clearly got a very nice race pace, feeling really nice in that car on these high fuel loads. A lot of guys seem to be struggling. He's certainly not one of them. He'll be looking at Red Bull Nitro hard tyres, and they'd be looking like there's another place to get there. Let's see Mr. P and O. Stevens looking like they're going wheel to wheel. Let's think O. Stevens won out on this occasion. TJ Jeffries in the far 22.9. He's extended that lead just slightly over Craig, but are we seeing a little bit of a Steele coming to the pit? I think he might have some damage on that front wing. We'll have to of course having a first lap pit stop as well. He's pitted for a set of soft tyres, and he does change that front wing. We'll have to go and have a look with Wojtek and Luke Bailey, as Luke Bailey's now dropping all the way down to P7. I think he's might have just lost it coming out of turn 2, turn 3, because he's now dropped past Malc and Brennan's into P8.
Yeah, I think he had a moment through turn 3. He's dropped down, so yeah, he hasn't picked up any damage, but back underway behind Brennan, so he's not too far behind. I think he's got the pace to claw some positions back. And
Giorgio and P4 keeping Gareth absolutely on his heels. Gareth's has had to do a lot of defending so far. He's done a very good job of it on lap 4, because he is in that podium position due to Mr. P's mistake. Giorgio with DOS very close into the hairpin, but he's just about not quite close enough. I'm sure we'll be looking for a move into turn 1 instead, as Nitro Gas now gets past Bailey, it looks like, into the hairpin. So it's not been a great lap at all for the Alfa Romeo drive. Once again, the Alfa Romeos are looking like they're having a bit of a more troublesome race after such a good qualifying session yet again. But it looks like it's already becoming a bit of a 2-horse race, Charlie, with Gareth, to be fair to him, has had to do a lot of defending, as he looks like a lot of time coming through that second last corner. He's going to go side by side with Giorgio for P3, but with DLS he's a bit of a sitting duck, and Giorgio does move into P3. Gareth's going to tuck in the slipstream, but he can't quite get close enough. He's going to have to be careful with Wojtek into turn 1. Sits it on the apex. He's safe for now, but Giorgio, he's looking very, very strong for the start of the race, but he's got 5 seconds to make up on Craig already.
Yeah, this battle for P3 has really helped Craig and Jeffries just to stretch that gap and, you know, give them that little safety buffer if they need to save tyres or save fuel during the race. So yeah, Giorgio after P3, he looked as if he did have the race pace over Gareth. Gareth was struggling to defend there, so yeah, I think that move was always going to happen. Let's just see if Gareth can tag along with him now and take that position back.
It's going to be really interesting. Of course, we were saying this could be a bit of a boring circuit. Usually it's in real life. It certainly seems to struggle in terms of the F1 fans. A fascinating race, but it's been an incredible opening 5 laps. Overtaking manoeuvres happening everywhere. Got looks like Luke Bailey and Synchronously look like come together in turn 9. Luke Bailey's facing the wrong. You have to be careful coming back onto the circuit. He is, and he's very well. It's had a bit of a nightmare start. Mr. P moves back into P10, so at least he's got that going for him. He's back into the points, but it looks like there was contact there through turn 9, which is, if it was an overtaking manoeuvre, that's not really the best corner for it, is it, necessarily?
No, I wouldn't expect to see any sort of overtaking happening through there. So yeah, obviously not a great idea, and it hasn't ended up well for either of them. So yeah, they have to try and recover. I think Luke Bailey's tyres are pretty overheated now. He seems to be struggling through every corner, so maybe he needs to come in and change those already.
Of course, spin it all, and as Wojtek going around turn 4, looks like he's just completely outbraked himself. He's gone to the gravel. He's going to have to try. It does well to keep it facing in at least in a little bit in the right direction. But you can see he's gone all the way, looking from challenging from P4, looking likely to get in that 4 position. Now struggling all the way down to P8, and he's got O'Stevens down the inside of him, the other Williams. And now he's Mr. P's going to try and follow him through as well. Of course, got grubby tyres. He's moved all the way down into P10. Just one mistake has cost him all those positions. And now he's all the way just into 10th place, and only a few seconds ahead of the Renault of Synchronously. It gives Gareth a little bit of breathing space, but of course he's got Malc just 1.2 seconds behind him. Craig is keeping on the tail of TGG Jeffrey for the lead, 1.4 seconds, so he's only a little bit outside DRS. He's going to have to find a little bit of pace though if he wants to try and keep with him through this stint, as Gareth's just looking like he's just about dropped out of the DRS zone of Dragio. Want to do his absolute best to stay in it. Of course, it's absolutely crucial around most circuits. Reynolds is having another very strong start to the race, kept himself out of trouble, and he's lining up the Red Bull of Malc, who Malc does not have the DRS on the Williams of Gareth, and they're going to, but I thought it might be a little bit of a wasted manoeuvre anyway, because when he pulls to the left, he's found out the McLaren has already gone past him around the outside. A very easy move. He's got it down in the DRS zone. Has come now around turns 2 and 3, and Mr. P get past O'Steven. Oh, but he's gone wide.
Yeah, no, he hasn't. Mr. P has gone way too deep into turn 1, and yeah, really just messed up and moved what should have been a straightforward dive down the inside on the quicker tyre on O'Steven. So yeah, he went way too deep, and O'Steven just did the smart thing, waited for Mr. P to lunge in, and just did the switch back and took his position back in turn 2 and 3.
Got to say, Steven's doing a really nice job. Of course, he's on those hard tyres, and they're quite a bit slower than his mediums. The mediums are still being in pretty good condition. Of course, these guys will have done their qualifying laps on them, but these mediums will still be feeling pretty alright, or they should be for a lot of these guys in P7. So it's absolutely crucial that Steven, if he can keep these two behind him, he's looking pretty nice for that second stint of the race. As Mr. P, though, is looking down the inside of the hairpin into turn 10. Wojtek and himself getting really close. Seems to have lost it. We've got a virtual safety car, which might help a couple of these guys, but no least it will help O'Steven potentially defend into turn 1. I think it's just lost it on the exit of turn 9, and believe me, Dutchlow, I know how that feels. It's quite a challenging corner in these race pace and on these race fuel loads and these tyres, and of course a bit of a sad situation for him as Wojtek comes into the pits. In fact, if it is virtual safety car, is it too early for the medium tyres, Charlie, or can you get away with it and get a cheap pit stop?
I think you could possibly get away with the hards from here on in. Yeah, if you drive carefully, I don't see why you couldn't. So, if this virtual safety car stays out, this could play into Wojtek's hands if he just keeps hold of those tyres now.
Absolutely, Mr. P, of course, cannot overtake O'Steven. He'd be absolutely desperate to get past him as he just taps the back of him. And I think he's lucky. I think he's just got away with no damage. In fact, although I am looking at that front right end plate, and it looks like he has got damage.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure what happened there. I think Mr. P was raring to go, and O'Steven was still maybe looking at the delta. And Mr. P just went flying in the back of him, and it's yet another setback for Mr. P. Just can't stay away from trouble at the moment.
As his teammates in the pits, which does drop into about plumb last. It's been once again since we're really trying first 8 laps in the race for these Alfa Romeo boys. Of course, it's Mr. P, I feel like on any circuit, losing a bit of your front wing is absolutely vital to your race pace. A circuit like this where it's high downforce, you feel like he's going to be losing quite a lot of time on each lap. So it'll be interesting to see if he tries to hang it out for a couple of laps, but it might be a wise decision to perhaps come in and change that front wing already. He's got a yellow flag in the second sector. One of the Hasses at the back there might be Tinnis. I think he might have a problem. I was saying, as we see Malc go side by side with Brennons. He's going to try and get the move back down on McLaren, almost a replica of what Brennons did to him just a lap or two ago. Down straight of DRS, he's kept on the back of him, and he's done a really nice job. He's got himself back up into P5, and these guys P4, P5, P6 I've shown us over the past 3 rounds that they have got very good race pace at times. These guys have done a good qualifying today, and now it looks like they're looking really nice in terms of getting a real high point scoring position tonight.
Yeah, there's a few drivers that are, got really nice race pace tonight. I'm looking at Craig, and he's doing well again. Good race pace yet again, and he's keeping Jeffrey honest, just staying within that 2-second window and not getting too close so his tyres don't overheat, and he just seems to be looking after his ERS well and probably his engine mode. So Yeah, Craig's looking very tidy so far. Let's see if he can push on and try and get Jeffrey towards the second stint.
Absolutely, a bit of a scruffy lap here from Gareth. He's dropped into the DRS clutches of the Red Bull of Malc. You just see him going wide through the chicane of turns 7 and 8, just going through the gravel, and he's lost a lot of time. Perhaps he is certainly struggling with his tyres. Takes a little bit of a tight line through this second to last corner as well. He's going to be under a bit of threat. It's going to be half a second behind this Red Bull come this home straight. He's got the DRS wide open. He's got the slipstream. Gav, of course, is going to try and break that. So go to the inside. See the Haas there. Tinnis is lapped out. I think Malc just backs out of it. Perhaps a little bit distracted by the Haas, but it's been distracted even more because as it gets penalties down the inside, it's absolutely caught out by the McLaren of Brennan's, flying it round the outside. An unbelievable opportunistic move.
Yeah, Malc just he tried backing out of the move on Gareth and just went way too cautious into turn 1, and Brennan's just said thanks, I'll have some of that, and just slung it down the outside, and now he's on the back of Gareth himself. That's
an incredible move from McLaren. I was already on board with Malc into turn 1. Had no idea where Brennan's was, but Brennan's certainly did. He pulled off a fantastic move, and of course the double whammy from Malc. In fact, it's almost a treble whammy. He almost loses it, and then almost collides with his teammate. Nitro Gas just about gets away with it. It looked like they're going to wipe each other out then, but Malc really struggling with those tyres now. I'm sure he'd be thinking of coming into the pits maybe this lap, if not certainly the next, I would imagine. But he picked up a penalty as well for being cautious into turn 1, lost the position, got himself a 3-second penalty, and now lost himself another place to his teammate. He seems to be really struggling now with those tyres.
Yeah, maybe just getting a bit hot now and starting to wear a bit quicker. I think he needs to just come in and get a new pair of boots, because he's just dropping back too much now, and he's gone round again, but I don't know, it doesn't look like they're getting any better for him out there.
Here comes the McLaren. Brennan's going down the outside of that straight. He's got the toe, moved up into P4. He's certainly looking like he's kept his medium tyres in better condition than the Williams of Gareth and Malc, and Malc does stay out for another lap, so he feels it's just too early to come in for those hard tyres. But Brennan's was saying he just really seems to have a real touch in terms of his race strategies, and he's clearly looked after his tyres really well, and he's already looking like he just has so much more grip than the Williams. Then I'm sure he'll be looking to try and break the OS very, very quickly. He's got 4 seconds is the gap to the Toro Rosso in P3, and Dragio is 5.6 seconds behind, and despite looking very good, Dragio, I think it's looking like he's just lost a little bit too much time passing the Williams of Gareth, because he can't quite seem to break into that gap of Craig.
Yeah, that gap to Craig is staying around the 5.5 second margin. It doesn't seem to be getting any smaller or bigger, but yeah, like you say, that time that he took to get past Gareth, all credit to him, defended the position very well for a few laps. Yeah, it seems to cost Dragio quite a bit of time, and he doesn't seem to be able to eat into that gap at the moment.
All the myths of lack of overtaking on the circuit have absolutely been squandered so far in his opening 12 laps. It's been a thrilling way to see what Malc does. He stays up for another lap. He's just following his teammates. He's in the DRS. He's going to be in the slipstream. Be interesting if he does go for the move on his teammate. Right now, he's going to look to the inside. I'm sure Nitro Gas won't fight it too hard. Captain's half a second behind for now, so he's just about keeping up him as Malc thinks better off the move, and the two Red Bulls decide to play nice friendly teammates for now. But they've got to be a little bit careful, because of course, like Stephen, as we were saying, did really nice to hold up the Alfa Romeo of Mr. P. He's kept himself in 8th position, and this is the sort of time where his hard tyres are going to be a lot better than these mediums.
It's all very well playing nice friendly teammates, but you've got a Williams on the alternate strategy behind you who's not going to play friendly teammates with you, and you know, he's going to look very handy towards the end of the race. So they've got to get a move on and decide who's quicker and switch around if need be, and then just get on with it.
Absolutely, and of course after there was a disastrous race for Red Bull as well, I believe double DNF for the Red Bull team, but they're looking handy for some good points today, but they can't trip over each other's feet, and I'm sure Malc will be coming to the pits very, very soon. It'll be interesting to see when the leaders decide to come into the pit, and TG Jeffrey decides to stay out for another lap. Craig comes into the box though. Yeah,
Craig's in. He's maybe trying to just get on the hards a little bit earlier and get them warm quicker than Jeffrey will be able to, you know, that might give him a bit of an advantage just to close that gap when Jeffrey then pits. So like I say, the warm-up time is around about a lap on the hards, so if Craig can get these warm and Jeffrey comes out on cold hards, Craig could be able to eat into that gap a bit.
Absolutely. So Gareth also coming Steffi feels like it was the right time also to pit for a new set of hards. They'd be looking to come in, try and catch back up with the mechanic Brennons, who also came into pits. As Brennons, I think I'm not sure if he had a penalty or change of front wing, but he's had quite a slow stop there because he's come out quite comfortably behind the Williams of Gareth there. Not sure if he caught that. That seems to be a bit of a disaster for McLaren drivers after doing so well. I'm not sure, I can only assume he had a penalty of some sort, but he's come out into P10, almost 10 seconds behind Williams.
Didn't see one, whether there was a penalty or a wing change, I'm not entirely sure. But yeah, very strange. I'm not sure how Brennons has ended up that far behind.
And Malc, to be fair to him, despite struggling quite clearly with his tyres, he seems to have got perhaps his temperature, rear tyres temperature, under a little bit better pressure as he's kept with his teammates, kept in the DRS zone quite crucially. His ratio picks up 5 seconds for speeding in the pit lane, which is an absolute disaster. It's such an easy penalty to get, and I'm sure I've been slapping himself on the wrist because Malc does now finally come into the pits. And is also coming to pit is TTG Jeffrey. Be interested to see where he comes out in terms of Craig. I'm sure he'll come out comfortably ahead, but Willie's gap has shrunk, and it's looking like so far, it looks like it potentially has done.
Yeah, and they've got a slower Williams in the middle of them, so that's worked out perfectly for Jeffrey. He can just get his head down now, warm those tyres up and crack on with his second stint, while Craig has probably got to pass O'Stephen on track. So yeah, like I say, it worked out perfectly for Jeffrey there. Yeah,
of course, he's got 3.7 seconds to the car in front of him, the Nitro Gas, who is in, of course, the Red Bulls on old hard. So he's got he'll have a few laps yet before he catches up with him. So he can get his head down, try and rebuild the gap to Craig the best he can. Craig's got behind him a little bit of a rear gun of Synchronously. He's done 13 laps on those medium tyres, so fair play to him. Down to 15, so it's been a real struggle for him this evening. Of course, he had a damage on lap 1, he had to pit early, so it was all a bit compromised from there. And of course, he's quite unlucky. Few virtual safety cars, but compared to Spa, it seems as all Stevens really struggling with his tyres now and gets out of the way of Craig well. Losing the rear all over the place there.
Yeah, that made it very easy for Craig. Craig does not have to worry about passing him now, and he can just get his head down and try and chase after Jeffrey.
So you see, Giorgio is 2.7 seconds behind Synchronously, so the gap to himself and Craig's probably stayed about the same. Into a bit of their own space on track. I'm sure they're all trying to get the best lap times in they possibly can, and just got to have to wait and see how this all plans out. Of course, the main thing for Craig is to try and catch up with TT Jeffrey. He's 1.8 seconds behind. He's got to find another 8 tenths per second. If he could just break into that DRS zone, he could potentially be looking right back on for the win. Of course, penalties is another thing that always have to be careful of.
Yeah, Craig is again looking tidy on the hards. I think, like I say, he just got him warmed up a little bit quicker than Jeffrey, because he did that extra lap. Jeffrey did. So you know, sometimes that can help your confidence. If you just get on the tyre earlier and just get that extra lap in, you could just feel a little bit better, and you could feel like you can go and chase the guy in front. So maybe that's working for Craig at the moment. Not entirely sure. Gap seems to be sticking around 2 seconds now.
Yeah, of course, he will, of course, be trying to close up as best he can a little bit. We will be licking his lips, looking on that mini-map, and he'll be looking and seeing a Red Bull ahead of him of TG Jeffrey. Got a yellow flag in that first sector. I think that's just a Haas of tennis, who's retired, I believe, already, so won't have to worry too much about him. I think he's just left the circuit, which is good. But it will be absolutely crucial part of the race will be when TG Jeffrey catches up to his Red Bull, and he's got to have to try and pass them best he can. He doesn't want to lose any time that he doesn't need to. He's done a good job so far since coming out of the pits. He's got that gap to about 2 seconds. But of course he knows that Craig is looking really, really racing tonight. Craig, as we were saying, absolutely gutted that he couldn't get not just the win, he was looking really handy for the win, but penalties really cost him in the end. He couldn't get a podium in Spa. Absolute gut-wrenching for him. But he seems to be back on the board tonight. Stevens, of course, as well. He started on those hard tyres, done 15 laps on them. He's didn't have the best qualifying session in the world. It seems to be a bit of a theme with the Williams drivers, but he's doing really nicely so far. He's kept his tyres in good condition. I'm sure when he comes in for those medium tyres, I'm sure it'll pay off handsomely for him if he can perhaps make up a few positions to make the most of those medium tyres. He's looking for a good haul of points tonight.
Yeah, if he can just keep, you know, the rest of his first stint tidy, and I think probably about 6, maybe 5 or 6 laps now he's got left on those tyres. Yeah, if he can just keep the rest of the stint tidy and, you know, not lose too much time to the guys behind him, he could find himself in a quite a handy position coming into the last stint and look, like you say, for a good haul of points.
Absolutely. Now Wojtek looking like he's just closing up on the back of the Williams of Gareth, poor Gareth seems to have come under threat just about every car so far. Did an incredible qualifying lap. Maybe he's just struggling a little bit more in the race, but he's done well in his own right in terms of his defending. He's held on to his positions well. He's of course lost out to Drazio in the opening laps, but he's going to have to come under a bit more pressure first from the Haas of Wojtek, and Wojtek is a driver who, as we're saying many times, has done a really nice job in qualifying before. As Brennan sets a new fastest lap race on his hards of 22.5, so he's not standing around. He wants to get back up where he should be. He feels he should be for the Williams of Captain Stiff, but he's going to be doing with pace like that. He's going to be catching up quite quickly. But Wojtek will be looking as a driver who's always seems to be around the podium in terms of his race pace, and he's had a couple of DNFs. He had a DNF in Japan, had a DNF in Spa. After both times looking quite nicely, comfortably inside the top 6. He'll be looking to make sure he capitalises on it fully tonight. And TG Jeffrey, crucially, now 8/10 of a second behind the Red Bull Nitro Gash.
Yeah, and Jeffrey will be looking to clear Nitro really quickly, just so he doesn't lose any time to Craig behind. And it should be a relatively straightforward pass down the pit straight with DRS.
So here he comes 6 seconds behind. He's done really nice. He's built a 2.7 gap over Craig. It's looking very calm so far. It will be a bit more potential. So there we are. The new fastest lap of the race, 22.2, a flying lap for the Racing Point. Looks like he's going to struggle a little bit. Does he go for an absolute dive bomb down the inside? No, he doesn't. He thinks better of it. He thinks he's going to play the patient game. He doesn't mind losing just a few tenths or maybe half a second. He's want to make sure he gets this move done cleanly. He is in the position with it all to lose. He is the net race leader. He got pole position, and he's done an absolute flying job so far. It looks like Wojtek's got past the Williams of Captain Stiff in the DRS zone into turn 1, and Gareth, is he perhaps struggling for race pace out there, or is he just coming up against some really quick guys tonight?
It does look that way. It does look like he hasn't quite got the pace that he showed in qualifying. Maybe he's struggling with managing the tyres. We just don't know. But yeah, Wojtek very nicely he just tucked it down the inside to turn 1 and just moved himself up to P6.
Absolutely. Now TG Jeffrey, of course, there's a second DRS zone down this back straight, coming into the hairpin of turn 10 out of the fast right hand of turn 9. But it is a bit more of a gimmick, this second DRS zone. It's not a massive overtaking spot. It's quite hard to follow around turn 9 and get super close to a car, even under the heavy braking of turn 10. He's going to want to try and make sure he gets the absolute best exit possible out of this last section of corners. He's going a really nice line through there. Get on the power early. He's got much more grip than a Red Bull, and he's now just 4/10 of a second behind with DRS and the slipstream. It's going to be really, really nice. But Craig has closed the gap to 1.9 seconds, but I feel like that this might be a bit of an easy routine as a Racing Point driver slips down the inside, back onto the racing line. He's got that job done crucially.
Yeah, he got a great exit out of the last corner, and Nitro Gash was just a sitting duck there. He had no chance to defend against Jeffrey, and he didn't try to, which was intelligent of him as well. So just going to get on with his own race, and he could find himself in a pretty handy position come the second stint once he changes to mediums. Absolutely. Of course, Stephen, as we know, was around about 8th position on the hards before all these pit stops started happening, so I'm sure we'll be hoping to make sure it comes out in at least around about the same position. He might drop down a position or two, but he will have much better tyres come back at him. Gareth, of course, getting past last lap by the Haas of the Wojtek for P6, but he's kept on to the back of him really nicely. He knows that if he can just stay in that DRS, Wojtek has set the fastest lap of the race. I think it was a 22.1, so it's the fastest car in truck at the moment. So I'm sure Gareth won't mind too much that he's just on the back of him, but I'm sure he'll be looking to get past the best he can. He's kind of got a 6.6 second gap to the Red Bull of Malc, so he's looking in a really tidy position. Gareth for some good points. So we're saying the two teams that really struggled in Spa, a double DNF of Red Bull, and DNF and a non-point finish for the two Williams. These are two teams that look like really up their game tonight. Yeah, they do look very handy now as Nitrogash pits for his medium, so be interesting to see where he feeds back out into the traffic. Is he going to get out ahead of Stephen? He does, so he hasn't lost any time in the pit lane. Where is he going to come out? I think he's going to come out around about his teammate by the looks of it.
That'll be an interesting battle. Of course, they're very calm together and really quite considerate. They're going to go side by side. Coming to turn one, Malc just about gets the nose ahead. But they're clearly very clean teammates. But if you're Malc on those hard tyres, surely you've got to let your team go very soon, haven't you?
Yeah, I think I probably would. It's probably the best thing to do. I think obviously Nitro had very good pace on the hards in the first stint, and he's going to be lightning quick now compared to Malc. So I think the sensible thing to do for Nitro and the team to improve their position in the race would be to swap cars.
It absolutely makes sense. And of course, coming up in the bottom hand corner there of your screens, crucially and perhaps race-changingly, TG Jeffrey has picked himself a 3-second time penalty, and Craig just 1.5 seconds behind. That would effectively mean Craig is your net race leader at the moment. So now TG Jeffrey, despite having it all his own way for the first 20 laps of this race, getting the pole position, and see now he's going to be under even more pressure. Craig's on the new fastest lap of the race, so 21.9.
Yeah, that's this could be a big turning point in the race to pick up a penalty like that, and knowing Craig is only 1.5 behind you, and then for Craig to come across the line and set fastest lap puts you under an immense level of pressure. So Jeffrey has really now got to get the hammer down and not pick up any more penalties and build that gap, otherwise he could find himself in trouble.
And as you're saying, the two Red Bull teammates, they do play. That's really considerate drive from Malc. He knows his team has got a better tyres. He knows his teammate has got a really good chance of catching Gareth for P5, and despite being quite comfortably ahead, he was in the DRS zone, Nitro Gas, but he wasn't in his own right really looking for a move. But Malc slow to the right hand side, let him through, and Nitro Gas can now go and challenge for the P5 position. But Brennan's is caught all the way back up to Malc as well. He's been really solid on his hard tyres, had a really solid race. A bit of a mysterious, I think he must have had a penalty in his pit stop because he lost a hell of a lot of time. But at least he's still got his pace, and he's still looking really nicely on the back of that second Red Bull, and he'll be looking to at least get a few more points. And Craig knows he's just got to try and stay in that 3-second gap of TG Jeffrey. It's 2.2 though, 2.3 seconds now, so TG Jeffrey is responding well on this lap.
Nearly lost it. Sorry to cut across you there. Craig nearly lost it on the final chicane. He just pushing. Jeffrey was clearly on a very fast lap, as we just seen. He's done the fastest lap, and Craig's just really pushing to keep up with him, and lost the rear end coming out of the chicane and almost stacked it into the wall. So yeah, he's dropped down probably around about 9/10 on that lap. So incredible lap by Jeffrey, and a great way to respond from picking up that penalty.
And there's another great lap. Nitro Gas has new fastest lap of the race by about over half a second there. So of course he has got the brand new tyres. So Dios and his teammate, you can see the gap he's pulled in Red Bull of Malc. He's got a 2-second gap to him, and he's really going to have to reel in Gareth at a rate of knots. And of course Gareth is still on the back of Wojtek, so it's really looking quite handy now so far for Nitro Gas. He's potentially looking at a top 4 place still. So yeah, an absolute flying lap from TG Jeffrey, an absolute perfect response. He got up, he got a penalty. He saw Craig set the fastest lap of the race, but then he's gone and bettered that by 0.2 of a second. So he's done a really nice response, and he's only got to find a few more attempts to find the 3-second cushion that he so desperately needs already. Of course, in the battle for 4th place, Gareth was saying perhaps potentially struggling a little bit on tyres and struggling on race pace, but he's doing really nicely to keep onto the back of Wojtek, who in his own right, Wojtek's been very quick tonight.
Yeah, Wojtek has been very quick, but Gareth is on 5-lap fresher tyres than Wojtek, because I think Wojtek was forced into an early pit stop. So yeah, Gareth just got to keep his head down and wait for Wojtek's tyres to go off a little bit, and he should start coming back towards him, and then again he should be able to try and make a move on the Haas.
Yeah, I think if I remember rightly, I think Wojtek was one of the guys who just thought it was worth the risk of pitting under VSC. I think we had a VSC on lap 8 or 9, so I think that was when he came into the pit stop, which clearly saves a bit of time, but we'll see if that comes back to bite him on the arse come the end of the race. There's a little bit of a scruffy wide line through turn 2 there from Gareth up to 1.1 seconds, so you have to work a little bit harder through this middle and last sector to make sure he gets the DRS come the home straight. Again, Reynolds is now all over the back of Malc and Red Bull, and sure, Malc was doing the best to try and defend his position. He's going defensive into turn 4 as well, but Reynolds is looking really racy tonight, Charlie.
Yeah, he's got, like we say, great pace. He's all over the back of Malc, and he should be really, now Malc has dropped out of the DRS of his teammate in front, he should be a sitting duck on the straight with the pace that we're seeing from Brennan's.
Yeah, it does feel like just a matter of time. Just over 10 laps to go as Craig is still just about through the skin of his teeth, holding on to that 3-second gap to TJ Jeffrey. It's going to be an absolute thrilling end to the races between those two. I'm sure Craig will be on the phone to his engineer to see has he picked up another penalty, and I'm sure TJ Jeffrey will be doing the same to see if he can just release a bit of that pressure, if that winner can pick up a penalty himself. It's actually crucial for Craig that he does not follow suit. And Gareth has had a very nice second and third sector. He's only 0.6 of a second behind. Battle for fourth is still on, and you see Nitro Gareth got 7 seconds to gain on these two, so they're certainly not giving that a catch up with them yet. He's going to have to try and find a little bit more pace. He's only gained half a second on his teammate in the last few laps, so perhaps he's not quite got all the pace in the world, not quite so confident on those medium tyres as you'd think. But interestingly, for the two Alfa Romeos, who had a scruffy start to the race, they're currently sat P11 and P13, not looking on course to get a single point tonight.
Yeah, like you say, scruffy race again from the Alfa Romeos. You know, good quality pace, but just caught up in unnecessary incidents, and I don't know, maybe losing the heads. You know, I didn't quite catch exactly what happened to both of them, but just don't seem to be able to get a perfect race together since Japan and that win for Mr. P. It's all a bit downhill. So yeah, Luke Bailey, he did well in Spa and came back from an incident and got on the podium, but again here it just seemed to have, like his teammate, been caught up in some sort of incident.
Voigt is really struggling with the rear of that Haas, and looking all too pleased to take advantage. Coming around the last corner, flat Voigt almost going into the wall. Does well to hold it, but Gareth moves up into P4. The Haas was sliding all the way through that last sector almost. That turn 11, as you're saying, that bump is a flat corner. It's a tight, sharp and fast left, and he just almost lost it there. And he's looking like it's going to really struggle for these last 8 laps or so to just try and keep it on the track, as Gaff has already pulled a 1 second gap, so that shows how much the Haas is really struggling with his tyres. Done 17 laps on them already. He's going to have to try and get 25 laps out of those hard tyres. I'm saying the tyre wear is so strong around here, and he's done well so far. He's got himself into a good point scoring position, but it's going to have to be just crucial at this point that it doesn't overheat those rear tyres at all, because having them worn is one thing, but then having them worn and with the tyre temperatures through the roof, you could really find them quite easily in the tyre warns. As we see the battle of Brennan and Malc. Brennan's, despite having really nice pace on his hards, he's still struggling to get past the Red Bull, but you feel like he's got to get on with it quickly, because Stevens is beginning to catch these pair.
Yeah, Malc just seems to be doing everything right at the moment and getting a really good exit out of that last chicane and through the last corner, so Brennan's struggling to get close to him down the straight. Maybe they're running different setups as well. Brennan's doesn't seem to be having great straight line speed, so yeah, again, he's approaching him in Sector 3 this lap around. Let's see if he can get a better exit this time round.
As we see at the bottom left of the screen, TJ Jeffrey has pulled a 3 second gap to Craig anyway, but it feels like he might not even need that, as Craig picks up a 3 second time penalty himself, which is absolutely gut-wrenching for the Renault driver. Perhaps that is the fight for the race over, but Brennan's is certainly looking for his fight for P7. It looks like he's finally going to get the move done. He pulls to the inside line. He's braked absolutely perfectly. Got the move done on that Red Bull. He moves up into P7, and he's got himself now got a car between himself and the Williams of Stevens, who's just catching him just a few tenths a lap. But he's been threatening to do that for quite a few laps, Reynolds, and finally he's got past him.
Yeah, it's, like I said before, it should have been really straightforward pass. Maybe he was just sitting back and saving up some battery power and looking after his tyres, and then went for it. Yeah, I just saw I was right on board. He turned his engine up to full max attack and made that look really simple.
Yeah, really nice move from Brennan's, and it's looking like he's going to get himself a nice haul of points tonight. And of course, he's only 3.1 seconds behind Nitro Gas, who's on those medium tyres, but potentially if they do fall off in the last, maybe put himself up. But the Mercedes are still, I think, just having a little bit of a moment through that second sector. And still, who's really put himself in championship contention after the first 3 rounds, down into P13 now. I think he had contact in the first lap, but I mean, this is an absolute disaster for him, surely.
Yeah, it's not been great for him, and we've got O'Stephen off the track in Sector 3. That's not looking great for him. He's now 10 seconds behind synchronously on those medium tyres. So, yeah, like we were saying earlier, that
it's missing an end plate. He comes into the pit.
Not entirely sure what happened, but he was looking to be in quite a handy position in the second stint and just lost it there and broken his wing, and unfortunately it's probably going to send him near the back of the grid.
Yeah, real shame there for Stephen. He's looking handy for it. Looks like it's going to be a double point scoring position for the two Williams, but he's going to drop in a handful of positions, and of course it does mean that the final points playing position does go to the Alfa Romeo of Luke Bailey so far, with just about 6 laps to go, as the penalty there for speeding in the pit lane. But there's a moment, it is a 3-second gap to Craig in P2. He's looking very handy for TJ Jeffrey. He knows his closest rival as well has a 3-second time penalty. Ratio is a further 7 seconds behind, so it looks like the top 3 pretty set in their ways. Gareth's 8 seconds behind. He's doing well to hold on to that position. He's had so many cars come up behind him. Wojtek was one of them, but he managed to stay with him and made the most of it when Wojtek was really struggling with his tyres. But Wojtek in his own right, while doing 20 laps on those hard tyres, he's kept inside the DRS zone of that Williams quite crucially, and it's just helping him to stay away from Nitrogas, who just doesn't seem to have the pace on those medium tyres, because he's only got the gap down to about 5 seconds. And it seems like, Charlie, the top 3 and most of the top 10, this could potentially be our finishing positions.
Yeah, like you say, the top 3 really just look set in stone now, unless something horrific happens to any of them. Wojtek tagging along behind Gareth still. Gareth's not able to get away from him, so Wojtek keeping nicely tucked up behind the Williams in the DRS. Could possibly have another attack on him, but the tyres could come into it at the end with them being 5 laps older than Gareth's. And like you say, Nitrogas, I was expecting him to be quicker in the second stint. His tyres are only 8 laps old and they are the mediums, so I'm not entirely sure. Maybe he just didn't have the out and out pace to catch the guys in front, but I was expecting him really just to close up onto the back of Wojtek and Gareth and just start challenging for P4.
It's interesting just where you're talking now. It just seems potentially a few spots of rain on the camera. Wow. I think was given the all clear that it would be all dry for both sessions, but I feel like I'm definitely seeing rain on the camera. There's only 4 laps left to go in this race, but that could potentially be a little bit of a hairy lap, potentially if you're in one of these almost maiden given podium positions. With the tyres, of course, they're going to be absolutely finished by the end of this race, and they're going to have to perhaps deal with a greasy track. I'm sure it probably won't get to this point where they're thinking of the intermediate tyres, but I mean, this is just an added variable into this race, and these cars are going to have to try and deal with it on some really ruined tyres.
Yeah, this is really interesting now. This could completely change the complexity of this race. When the track becomes greasy, the guys on the softer compounds, so Nitrogas there in 6th on the mediums, are only 9 laps old, and if you look further down the grid, you've got Mr. P and O'Steven on medium and soft tyres. They could find themselves in a lot quicker, like, you know, a few seconds a lap quicker than the guys ahead of them on those old hards, because the track just becomes so slippery, and if you can't keep the heat in the tyres, which you struggle to do on the hards, you can find yourself sliding off the road. So this is going to be a real test here for the front 3, and see if they can keep their cars pointing in a straight line, as this track just inevitably is going to get greasier and greasier.
Absolutely, it's going to be a real test, certainly for the Williams with Gareth, who's just seemed like he just struggled a little bit through that last middle sector, but he's had a really nice last sector, and he's pulling himself an 8/10 of a second gap, so it should just about be alright for this lap, with just 4 laps now left to go. As TG Jeffrey got a 3.6 second gap, he's looking really nice, but Gareth's going to have to go a little bit defensive, but no, he's got himself a nice comfortable. It's definitely so visible now, you say, feeling it every single lap. Every time they come past this pit lane wall now, the track is going to feel just that little bit different to the lap before, and with the tyres getting worse and worse and the track getting worse and worse, it's going to be a really hairy couple of laps for these guys. But I'm sure that won't faze Gareth. He's had someone behind him for almost the eternity of these 30 laps, but he's done remarkably well so far tonight with his ratio as well, so himself and after an absolute disaster of a Belgium Grand Prix for Gareth, he's looks like he's going to have a nice return of points tonight. It's a little bit wide around turn 9. Thankfully he's got himself enough of a gap on Wojtek to be safe into turn 10 at the hairpin. But see, the rain now really coming down. It's going to be really hairy for these guys, and so this is a track where the curbs can throw you. The tyres will absolutely go off. You know, you really can make a mistake on just about any single corner, coming around this last sector now as well. I'm sure Wojtek trying to get the power down as soon as he can, but he's on 22 laps on those hard tyres. They'd be very, very worn at this point. Something we saw in F1 League, Charlie, it was on the hard tyres. On the last lap we saw Adri Lokdok getting a puncture. I think Wojtek surely is very close to puncture territory.
Yeah, he's probably not far off that. It depends on how he's managed those tyres through this second stint, and we've seen that he has been attacking and trying to close on the back of Gareth. So yeah, if those are really worn, then he could find himself in a whole heap of trouble if this track gets greasier and greasier.
Actually, just half a second between them now, and the Hasse Wojtek has just done really nicely. That this pair, they seem to change in terms of who seems to be quicker and who's not. As Luke Bailey comes into the pits on lap 31, he was in the final point scoring position. I'm sure he won't mind too much because that position will be taken over by his teammate. It's be interesting to see if he goes for a new set of softs or whether he just tries out the blue and goes onto the intermediate tyres. Let's see what he comes into. He does go onto the intermediate tyres, which I suppose when you are down in P10, 1 point doesn't mean an awful lot to Luke Bailey. He's a driver who going to have his eyes on the championship and more race wins throughout this season, so he's just going for the absolute all guns blazing, hope it absolutely tears it down with the rain and try and get a position or two. It's about 15, see Mr. P in fact is 23 seconds behind Synchronously, so it's always going to take a massive gamble to really try and close that gap, but he feels like it's a gamble worth taking as Wojtek is still holding on to the back of Gareth, but Gareth's looking like he just has that better grip through this last sector, but he almost loses it through that second to last corner, and that's going to compromise his last corner. And Williams doesn't seem too slippery in a straight line tonight. It's now the DRS and the slipstream, and I'm sure the engine up to 11 as Wojtek comes steaming past him into turn 1, and with just 2 laps to go, Gareth just one small error, which is, as we're saying, is all it takes in his difficult positions. Just one small error. He's looking very comfortable. He's now lost the position.
Yeah, it's so easy once this track becomes greasier. It's you know, the racing line then becomes a problem for you in some corners because that's where the rubber is and that's what gets slippery. So you kind of need to use what some people call the karting line and stay off the rubber in some corners just to get good traction on the exits and to get the turning through the corners. So yeah, maybe just lost a bit of traction there and it's cost him the position, but he's on the fresher tyres still by 5 laps, so he should be able to have another go and try and get Wojtek back. DRS is still enabled, and I imagine it will be as we head into the last lap, so yeah, he has definitely got another chance.
He's going to have to give himself an absolutely lightning exit out of this last corner. See, Wojtek is going a little bit wide there through turn 12, and Gareth has been looked really nicely, but of course we were saying it's going to be lap on lap, it's going to feel slightly worse, and Wojtek isn't going to know how much he can push it. It's Gareth right on the gearbox. Wojtek's going to be all about how much they can get onto the power, and just squeezing a little bit of a correction for that last corner. It looks like Wojtek's got a really nice exit through that last corner, but 6 tenths is the gap. Gareth's going to peel into that slipstream. He knows it's the last lap. He knows it is going to be this lap or never for his P4. He's held onto it for such a long period of this race. He's going to feel he deserves it, and he can't quite get it into turn 1, but I'm sure there is an opportunity come with this rain. As you were saying, it's going to get worse throughout the lap. He has still got half a chance, but he's going to need a mistake from Wojtek now.
Yeah, anything can happen through the rest of this lap. Yeah, it's looking like he's going to need a mistake from Wojtek because we've got a yellow flag in sector 2.
Yeah, Luke Bailey. I think the intermediates just a little bit premature there. He's absolutely dropping back, dropping through the field. He's now into P15, so it's a gamble he thought was worth taking. It's a gamble that's not paid off. He seems certain to now finish the race in last place, but it does at least mean his teammate Mr. P moves up into P10. It will be a return to the point scoring positions for him. Of course, he has failed to pick up a point since his race win in Japan, and 2 point. We've got a yellow flag. Is that a it's Stragio on the last lap for P3, and he's got these two coming up right behind him, and he's just about going to get away with it. But through turn 11, absolutely lost it, and that just shows is TT Jeffrey, fair play to him, comes across the line. Well done to him. We missed that there through Stragio having a bit of a moment. Congratulations to him. It is a 4th different winner in 4 rounds. Well done to him. Pole position, he dominated the race. Craig as well. He was gutted that it didn't get a podium in Spa. Well, and it has cost him in the end because he had a 5 seconds time penalty, which was for speeding in the pit lane, which I completely forgot about. It was about 7 seconds clear of Wojtek and Captain Stiff, and that has now meant that spin has now meant he's lost the podium.
Yeah, like we said, you know, like the track gets greasy, and on those old hard tyres, it just is so easy to lose temperature and make a mistake, and unfortunately for Drago, it looks like that's what's happened to him here, and cost him the podium, which is unfortunate after his great drive last week. It would have been good to see him on the podium again and put himself more in the championship hunt, but unfortunately it hasn't worked out like that this week.
I'm sure he'll be absolutely kicking himself there as he see Mr. P just running up the 10 position, but F1 Richard just looks like it's going to come over the line P12. Stephen comes across the line P11. He did well to recover. I think he might have just hit the wall. He had to pit for a new front wing. He did well to come up just behind Mr. P, just a tenth of a second due to Mr. P having penalties. So he's really unlucky to just miss out on that final point scoring position. But out of the blue, Charlie, we've seen Drago move from a certain P3 to P5, I believe it was.
Yeah, like we just said, it's really unfortunate for him, and one mistake, it's just fine details, one mistake can cost you so much in these leagues. It's such close racing all the time, so yeah, I'm sure he'll be looking to learn from that mistake and maybe not, try not to make that if he's put in a similar position again in the future.
Absolutely, but of course we're saying well done to Gareth. He was defending that P4 for so much of the race, but he comes across that line as a little reward for defending it so well for much of the race. He's not just got P4, he's got himself a podium, and after such a horrific time he had in Spa, a really frustrating race for him, he finishes off on the podium in Spain. Really nice result for him. But TT Jeffrey is the winner of the Spanish Grand Prix. Congratulations to him. Craig returns to the podium. A little bit of I'm sure it'd be a bit of a redemption for him. He felt like he should have won in Spa. He was gutted not to get at least on the podium, while he has today. Captain Stiff returns to the podium, well done to him. Wojtek and Drago, really nice pace there, 4th and 5th. Nitro Gas couldn't quite get the most out of those medium tyres in the second stint, but he finishes P6. Brennan looks incredibly strong in the race pace, he finishes P7. Malc in P8, well done race for him. Synchronicity comes from the back of the grid to finish P9. Mr. P seems like a familiar sight, he did a really nice job in qualifying, just all went wrong for him in the race. Steve and F1 Richard, so Spud, Steele and Luke Bailey are our final finishers out of the points, and Tinnis, Dutch Lowe and Colin did not finish. So the race is over, Charlie. It seems like the top two, were they in a league of their own?
Yeah, they like they said earlier in the race, that the initial battle in between Gareth and Drago and a couple of others, just let those two get away, and once they're away, that was it. They were just sort of, yeah, like you say, in a league of their own, and just controlled the race nicely. Craig just kept Jeffrey honest, but wasn't quite able to put a challenge to him. But yeah, a nice race from the top three, and all thoroughly deserved drives and podiums. So yeah, it was an enjoyable race.
Absolutely, and a really nice job, and it makes this championship even more exciting. A 4th different winner in 4 races. Congratulations to the Racing Point driver. And of course, with F1 Richard not having a great race, still not having a great race, the Alfa Romeo of Luke Bailey not having a great race, it's going to be really, really tough to call. But we're saying even someone like Brennan's perhaps, Charlie, do you think someone who's just consistently there, and I'm sure TT Jeffrey and Craig will be looking to do this more often, but is consistency more than ever just seems to be the key, isn't it, to be at the top?
Yeah, it does look that way so far. I mean, qualifying, as we've seen, doesn't mean really, well, anything in these races at the moment. Apart from today, obviously Jeffrey qualified on pole and took the win, but it just seems to be that there's a lot of guys with similar race pace and are really competitive with each other, and anyone can take the win and the podium at the moment.
Absolutely, and so we now just wait for our top 3 and our podium to join us. And of course, if you enjoyed what you watched tonight and you want to try and watch a little bit more, you can find us on all the socials. You can find us on Instagram at Invictus Racing League. You can find us on Twitter at Invictus RL. You can find us on Facebook, where you can find things like photo albums. You can find clips from tonight. You can find all the lot. You can watch more. You can watch more of this on the Xbox League on Sunday, 9 PM. The F1 League returns on Monday. That's brought to you by Gareth and Sab. That's 8 PM on Mondays. The Realistic Performance League gets underway with round 5. That's Malc and Tim. That's Tuesday nights on 8 PM. And the Formula 2 League of Wednesday nights, same as us, 8 PM with Dan and James. And I believe our podium are here. And I believe Charlie is going to take the reins with questions tonight.
Yeah, just if you haven't already, guys, please go to your party settings and make sure that your voice is on always allow, so we can hear you on the stream. And if you're ready, Jeffrey, I will start with you. Are you ready? Okay. I'll start with Gareth in reverse. Gareth,
Good evening.
a good qualifying for you compared to the previous races. You qualified P4. You had a good lap time. We saw that you went purple in the middle sector and just made a small mistake in the last chicane. Is this one of your better tracks?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, probably. It's one I've won here in F3 a few seasons ago, and yeah, I do feel quite comfortable. But I mean, moving to the wheel this season, it's a completely different ball game. I took the win here on the pad, and then now moving on to the wheel, so it's nice to sort of maintain a little bit of pace. But I mean, I definitely didn't think I was podium worthy. Yeah, I did make that slight. I think it probably cost me pole, if not the front row, making that mistake at the penultimate corner, because I just to put the power down too early, and it cost me 2 or 3 tenths. So yeah, I was buzzing to finish to get fourth, and then really unsuspecting to finish on the podium after what was a really fun fight with Wojciech.
Yeah, and do you feel that your race pace could have been better? Because obviously at the beginning we saw you battling with I think it was Dragio, and that went on for quite a few laps, and that's obviously allowed the top two to get away. But do you think if that battle hadn't happened, you would have been able to go with the top two? Obviously, seeing your pace and quality, it say that you could have, but do you think you could have challenged for the win today, or was P3, P4 the maximum you could have got?
I think I've got to be happy with P3. Jeffrey was really decent on race pace this evening, and then equally Craig. I think I possibly could have caught up to him, but I think on lap 3 or lap 4, I just for some reason I was far too heavy on the throttle pedal, and my tyre temperature's through the roof, so I was really struggling to, which is why I think I dropped back like 2 seconds on Craig and really invited the pressure on Dragio. So, and then as soon as he got past me, it was sort of a battle between me and him, and yeah, that did hold me up, but it was to come home 3, I'm buzzing about that.
Yeah, cool. Well done. On to you, Craig. You started in P3. You had a fairly quiet race, I'd say. Just kept your head down, got up into P2, I think at the start, wasn't it? And just tucked in behind Jeffrey, and that was pretty much it. How did your race go?
After last week's huge mistake, it was just ensuring that kept it consistent and mistake free. Did pick up the 3-second penalty, unfortunately. Was just hoping to start behind Jeffrey and Mr. P at the start, just save fuel, ERS, etc. Just let those guys battle. Didn't think the battle would have ended as quickly. Looked as if they had a coming together at turn 4. Had to watch really and avoid Mr. P's car. Thankfully got through that unscathed, and it was really just about tucking behind Jeffrey, trying to get close enough for DRS. Unfortunately broke it, so the only other option was to try the undercut, and they actually had it covered off, so not much more I could do. Jeffrey had lightning pace tonight, but delighted to secure a podium eventually and have the opportunity to speak with you guys.
Yeah, and we've seen from the first few races that you have had good race pace and possibly race pace to possibly win a race. Do you think a win is coming? I think based on what you've done so far.
It should have came last week. Just one mistake, had low ERS. Trying to recuperate it with life braking under VSC, caught napping. Dragio just swooped past me under DRS, got the win. So the win should have been here by now, but I'm just taking one race at a time, one lap at a time each race. That's all I can do, just to try and put myself in there for the discussion, and just keep plugging away.
Yeah, exactly. That's it. Just keep plugging away, and I'm sure you've got the pace, so it will come eventually. And on to you, Jeffrey. Are you ready now? We've seen that you've had lightning pace in some of the previous qualifying sessions and the races. It just hasn't quite worked out for you yet. You got pole position today. It looked quite comfortable. You just sort of got a good start and headed off into the lead. Was it a straightforward race, or were you really having to push to keep the gap around about 2.5 seconds to Craig the whole time? Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I believe he did. Yeah. Yeah, tunnel vision. Yeah, really well focused. Were you worried about when it started raining at the end? Did you feel the pressure? Did you think that you're susceptible to make a mistake and possibly allow one of the guys past? Yeah. Yeah. Well done. Congratulations to all three on the podium. It's entertaining race as usual. Yeah, look forward to next week.
Absolutely, well done to all three of you. It was an incredible race to watch. I think, as you say, I think Craig and TG Jeffrey seem to be in a league of their own, and really hairy there at the end. And sure, Jojo will be absolutely kicking himself, just blowing his podium just a few corners from home. Sorry. But if you enjoyed the race, and if you haven't subscribed already, if you enjoyed, give us a thumbs up. I really hope you did enjoy. We hope to see you for round 5 next week. Just saying, Wednesday 8 o'clock. Thank you for all those who watched tonight. Well done to all the drivers, especially the top 3. Well done to Gareth for nicking a podium after his disaster of a Spa. Hopefully we'll see all these guys all near the front next week as well. So I hope you enjoyed, and we'll see you very soon.